much. Thank you. जोर दी ताली बजाओ, कमाल कर रहा है. Thank you, Dr. Arpit Khan, Mr. Sikri, teachers, my daughter-in-law, students, ladies and gentlemen. मैं अंग्रेजी अच्छी नहीं बोलता. I don't speak good English or Hindi or Punjabi, so we shall use all three languages during our presentation, our interaction. My name is Ambassador Deepak Vohra. I'm the handsomest ambassador India has ever had. And the smartest Prime Minister India has never had. Today we are going to talk to you on a subject that I enjoy greatly, interacting with ignited young minds. It's called megatrends. In the next 30, 40, 50 years, where do we see our planet going? Incidentally, one of the three producers contacted me some days ago and said I owe him a lot of money because the film flopped so badly. Apparently they did 2 shows and both shows were empty. So the actress also was contacted and asked to pay back the money. Zina Taman. Anyway, now we are going to talk about how we see the future. We'll run through this very quickly, and at the end of it, if you have any questions, Mr. Sikri will be happy to answer that. Well, thank you very much. This is what happens after lunch. Everybody is so relaxed, they go to sleep. Thank you. Thank you, AIMA, for giving me this slot. हम लोग भगवान नहीं हैं, but we are Indians, which is the next best thing. An Indian's vision is to exceed every expectation of everybody, every time. If you take a look at this, in the next 3 years, from 2007, India's GDP would have gone up by 4 times. This is the first ever such achievement in human history. You know, today we have the internet, you have the networks, you have economics without ethics, and you have real politics. Everybody talks of market forces. Dr. Khan, nice to see you, sir. Everybody talks of market forces. Are we in danger of losing some kind of identity? Why do we study the past? Because it once too was the future. Angus Madison, this is a very interesting statistic. In 1700, 300 years ago, India's share of world income was almost a quarter. Today, India's is around 2%. And Europe, 40%. 16th century, age of discovery. 17th was the age of slavery, destruction of civilizations. 18th century, knowledge, military power. 19th century, the age of colonization. 20th century, wars, freedoms, rise and fall of the Soviet Union. And 21st century, all we are seeing is terrorism and militant Islam so far. And violence in the Middle East. These are our global megatrends today. We see economic power shifting. We see international political influence changing. Military balance is moderating, soft power is rising, and we find Islam at war with itself. People talk about Sunni, Shia problems, Wahhabi problems, but it's much more than that. It's more deep-rooted. Hillary Clinton said in 2012, countries like India, China, Brazil gaining influence because of their economies. Strange words, no? Coming from a desh, जो कहता है गोली मारो, मारो, bomb फेंको, ये करो. They say, oh, these countries are becoming important because of their economies, not their military power. US President Barack Obama in October 2013, billions of people from Bangalore to Moscow to Beijing working to out-educate and out-compete us. He's telling American students to work hard. डरते हैं, आप लोगों से डरते हैं. Because an Indian performs much better for less money. They are truly, truly frightened. So he comes to India twice during his tenure, not because he loves us, but he wants to find out what we are up to. And he says he'll come again after relinquishing office. He said, 2012, I'm sitting in the Spanish Parliament when the Spanish Prime Minister, I speak Spanish fluently, says, it is Spain's destiny to be a donor country. Forever and ever, we will be donating money to other countries. 2002. Rab sun raha se, God was listening. And in 2012, Spain begs for a bailout. And when the bailout comes, what does he say? The Spanish leader says, the European Union has been saved. The euro has been saved. The credibility of our system has been saved. And he cannot Spain bach gaya. ताकत खत्म हो गई, पैसा खत्म हो गया, अक्कड़ नहीं गई. You understand what I'm saying? That is what we are seeing happening as one of the mega trends. Then in January last year, Greece's economy, it votes for an anti-austerity package. दुखी हो गया, आत्मा बड़ी खराब हो गया होना दिया. They are used to having a luxury lifestyle. By the way, we have almost 600,000 unsold apartments in Spain. So if you want European residency, you can buy it for 150,000 euros. 150,000 euros is about Sawa crore rupiah. And the next plane will leave in 4 hours, in case you are interested. UK Prime Minister visits India, February 2013, 3 years ago. Largest ever business delegation. Economists देखो की बनांदा है. फोटो साफ नहीं आ रही, लेकिन सरदार मनमोहन सिंह, सोनिया गांधी, बीबी बैठे हुए. The Prime Minister of Britain is saying, "Salam huzur, पैसे दो मेरे को, salam huzur." I didn't do this. The Economist has done this. 3 of the world's 4 largest economies in Asia. Europe has no money; it only has akkad. Have you heard of a fellow called Edward Snowden and Julius Assange? Julius Assange is hanging around in the Ecuador embassy in London. Edward Snowden is the chap who did all the WikiLeaks things. Hanging around in Moscow. The Americans are saying, isko wapas karo. Ecuador, pissu sa desh, itna sa compared to that big tiger America. Ecuador kya kehta hai? Na, 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 na. Beta, hamare paas hum wapas nahi karenge. 4, 5, 6 saal se beta. 20 years ago, let me assure you that the Ecuador president would have put this fellow in the plane and said, "Lo Washington, lo Malik, main wapas la." Today things are changing very quickly. Pope talks about Europe 2014. It's an haggard continent. And my philosopher teacher at the Sorbonne said, Europe is a society of old people living in old homes, ruminating about old ideas. Why old people? Because they have forgotten how to make babies. और टेक्नोलॉजी खत्म हो गई, ऐसी दे देंगे बच्चे कैसे पैदा कर. India may not be a very productive society, we are a reproductive society. I wrote an article for the Financial Times in May 2012. West has colluded in its demise. Europe thinks that nothing will change in the world. China has destroyed European manufacturing in everything except weapons. So therefore you can expect more military interventions and you can expect more refugee flows. An article I wrote almost 4 years ago. I'm tempted to say, yeah, I was right. But these were the mega trends we were looking at. India, any mega trends that we can discern? Claude Auchinleck was this British fellow, commander-in-chief. He wrote in 1948, the breakup of the idea that India is a country. In 1966, 2 American biologists wrote that India is never going to be able to feed itself. In 1970, the Washington Post, the fellow in India, he wrote that the creation of linguistic states is going to lead to the breakup of India. You see, it's very easy to be an expert on India. You can say almost anything and be almost certain that you are almost correct. A fellow comes here for one day and he says, I know India. India is a rich country. We say, thank you. No, sorry, India is a poor country. We say, thank you. Oh, India is a medium income country. Thank you. India has rich people. Thank you. India has poor people. Thank you. India has fat people. Thank you. India has black people. Thank you. India has white people. Thank you. Indians eat a lot of chili. Thank you. Indians eat boiled food. Thank you. Everything you say is almost correct. Reality. I talk now about India. I'm old enough to have seen India grow in the last 6 decades. What Europe has tried to do in the last 10 years, create a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-society, we've been trying to do it in the last 69 years. Have you heard of the Arab League, the League of Arab States? 22 countries speak one language, Arabic. We are one country and we speak 22 official languages. My Arab friends can't believe this. How do you have 22 official languages and speak one country? Indian restaurants, Mrs. Khan referred to that Mickey circus joke, Donald Bhai Sahib. So the Donald Bhai Sahib, we have in 188 countries Indian restaurants. Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau asked me to go to a tiny island for lunch. We go in a boat which is rowed by a fellow. I speak Portuguese. I reach this restaurant and I asked the guy, what are you giving me for lunch? He said, you can have boiled beef, grilled beef, roast beef, fried beef, beef curry, beef this, beef that. I said, I'm a Hindu. I don't eat beef. In any case, I don't like meat very much. Then he says, can I boil some potatoes? I said, yes. He says, can I give you music? I said, of course. He brings an old battered CD, plugs it into his music system in Guinea-Bissau, west coast of Africa, tiny little country. And the music I hear is, oh, Gaddi Dilna Chale Di I asked the fellow, I said, do you understand what this means? He said, no sir, but I like the rhythm a lot. And then I said, can you dance to that? Then he does something. Amazing. Amazing to see how Indian films, Indian culture has taken us so far. The best ambassadors that India has ever had in the Soviet Union was Raj Kapoor. In Armenia was Mithun Chakravarti. When my wife and I are walking in Marrakesh, Morocco, they see her sari and this little kid who's 7 or 8 years old comes up, tugs at her sari and says, Bazigar, oh Bazigar. Without understanding a word, but it's our films that have made us so popular. All right, here is a question for you. Europe, America, Japan, Australia, किसने develop किया था इनको? भगवान ने, nature ने, people from another planet or their own people? Who developed? Thank you very much. Was it young people or old people? Young people. Thank you for looking at me and saying young people. Very good. Look, during the Industrial Revolution, 18th century, life expectancy in Europe was 40 years, so mainly young population. Young people take advantage of ideas and technologies. Do you know what the median age in India today is? 27 years. Half the population is less than 27, half more than 27. My dear kids, this is the best time to be young in India. The best time. You are born at the best time that you are in that group that is less than 27, along with me. I'm almost there. We call this the demographic window of opportunity. Median age. For Brazil, it is 2000 to 2030. The median age is now 29. China, the demographic window is 1990 to 2025. India is 2015 to 2050. Demographers refer to this window of opportunity when your economy is unstoppable. Dekhiye, abhi they are talking of a global crisis, and the IMF says India is going to grow 7.5% this year. This is the demographic window of opportunity. Because your young people are working. Your young people are taking India. This is exactly what Russia has already gone. 2015 finished. Japan finished in 1995. 60,000 businesses closed in Japan last year because there were no children to run them after mommy and daddy died. USA, it's finished in 2015. Europe also in 2015. The demographic window of opportunity. This is the best time. By 2020, we'll be the world's youngest country. Japan, Buddha ho raha hai. China is becoming Buddha. West is becoming Buddha. It can add 2% to our GDP. Exactly what they said is correct. Our own assessment, had we been an older society, we would have grown at 5.5%. Because we are a youthful society, we are going to grow at 7.5%. GDP, this is what the Citigroup says. 2050 in purchasing power parity. India 86 trillion, China 80 trillion. I didn't say this. USA 39 trillion. Just look at this. I'm not saying this. And I didn't bribe the City Group to say this. They have said it on their own that we will be 86 trillion. Trillion has 12 zeros. Time, this is India Today, last year, ek saal pehle. Advertisement for property in London. Where? London. India Today to London में circulate नहीं होती, so I called the number. मैं तो वैसे पंगा लेने वाला हूँ. So I said, ma'am, I am interested in buying property. Very nice ad I saw. She said, yeah, absolutely. This is £7 million. Penthouse is so much, so much. And I said, ma'am, just one question. As an Indian, we're a poor country. Why did you advertise in India? I don't wish to speak to you, sir. So thank you very much. They don't speak to me. They advertise because the only people who have bought this property are fellows like this liquor, this beer wala, what is his name? The chap who's now, he's gone and bought himself an expensive property. They know that purchasing power is in India. 1982, my wife and I walking on 5th Avenue, New York, go into a shop to buy a camera. Fellow looks at us and tells his assistant, these are Indians, they don't have the money. 1982, 2012, we decide to go to the same shop. It's not the same owner, there's somebody else. He smiles at me and says, where from? I said, India. Please come and say you're the only people who spend money. 2015, the average Indian tourist traveling overseas spent $3,200 on his visit, the highest per capita spend by anyone. Invest in Bavaria. Have you heard of Bavaria? This is an advertisement in business world. Bavaria is in Germany. The Germans investing, advertising in an Indian magazine asking Indians to invest in Germany. Ye duniya pagal ho rahi hai, bilkul. I thought we were looking for it. What's happening very quickly? We have this assertiveness, we have growing use of right to information, we have financial strength in the company, education for advancement, never scared to work hard. You just heard that I'm also special advisor. This is a true story from this year, January. Special advisor to the Chief Minister of Kargil. I arrive in Srinagar. I have to go to Kargil for a meeting, then to Leh for a meeting. And that's a 10-hour drive and my flight is the next morning in Srinagar. I have an army driver and I say, look, I have to go for this meeting and I have to come back. Please call Leh, ask them to have another driver. He just smiles at me and he tells me in Punjabi, he's a Khalsa. Punjabi, he says, and I'll tell you in Punjabi. Oh, Sham ji, aise sirf 20 घंटे hai, tusi kaho te 200 घंटे gadi chalavanga without being tired. It takes me back to Poland. I tell my driver, a European Union fellow, I said, we have to drive to Lithuania. Mrs. Kang is with me. 6-hour drive. Sir, it's a violation of my human rights to drive more than 5 hours. Kahan kaam karenge? Where do you think these people will work? They have forgotten the ability to work. The only people who have it are the Chinese and the Indians. People's direct action. Lalu Prasad goes to jail. Some other chief minister goes to jail. Bollywood actor is convicted. Okay, he gets away, but he's going to go back to jail. And then we see this demonstration of youth power in New Delhi when this girl, unfortunately, was violated in a bus. Let me assure you, because I'm privy to the discussions, the government of the day was trembling. You know, kids, not that I want you to do it, but if 1 crore Indian kids like you had occupied the gateway of India, India Gate in Delhi, what do you think would have happened? I asked the then police chief, I said, sir, will you fire on them? He said, are you crazy? They are our children. I asked the army chief, I said, will you send in the soldiers? He said, are you crazy? These are our children. It's exactly what happened in Egypt in Tiananmen Square. I was there. These kids got together and down went the government. This youth power that we saw frightened us. But we are Indians, we have our own way of doing it. But let me tell you, I've never seen the then Home Minister go to the bathroom so many times as he did during those crucial 24 hours. So willingness, ability to spend. Samsung says India is its largest profit center. more mobile phones sold in 2015 in India than in any other country. This is just to give you an idea of the rural market. We don't accept official aid from anybody. We are now giving assistance to over 150 countries. One of the 3 countries that recovers satellites from space. One of the few that can build aircraft carriers. 1990s, let me tell you that I was posted there. The US pressured Moscow. Don't give them cryogenic tech. You know what cryogenic technology? Technology of very low temperatures because they'll build rockets. Our scientists worked day and night. We're 20 years behind schedule. Ultimately, we did it ourselves. Our first satellite was launched in 1981 by the French, and in 2014, we launched French satellites. That is the Our early warning system for tsunami has not given a false alarm. We no longer seek aid for natural disasters. The Indian electricity grid collapsed, if you remember, it was in July 2012. Everybody said, information superpower, they can't have Bijli. Half of India was without Bijli. Nobody reported that in a few hours, we brought it back. And when we had a similar thing in the United States called Hurricane Sandy, it destroyed the US systems. In some states, it took weeks. What is so special about our technology? It is called Jugaad. We have the world's best. I spent just 5 seconds on this picture. This was the Sikkim earthquake. We were told that the road from Siliguri to Gangtok would be open in about 6 weeks. We asked the border roads to get to work. 6 weeks is what the international experts told us. Border roads did it in 19 hours. 19 hours the road was open. This boy was there. I was with the Doordarshan team to do a documentary. Look where he's standing and he's drilling. And I screamed out to him, I said, Renedo, let it be. We'll come another day. He said, no sir, you have to come. As he drilled, he fell. He fell 80 meters into the Tista River to his death. His brain had come out. I went down, put it back. Then we went to see his widow. And whatever Doordarshan paid, all of us, the entire team, that plus 10 times as much, we collected and gave it to his widow. She had a little boy. I'm sorry, that scene is still before my eyes. And I said, Inka, what do you want to do with your son? She says, I'll send him to join the border troops. Just look at this. Look at the vitality of our. So Nepal devastated by an earthquake, we are airborne within a few hours. Smallpox we finished. AIDS we have conquered. We're not going to have any new cases of AIDS, but we have a big problem. All these fellows, the UN agency for AIDS, what are they going to do? So we are going to help them because they'll lose their jobs. No? We have no new cases of AIDS. So we are inventing a new disease. It's called PAX, Post-AIDS Trauma Syndrome. And the UN fellows will treat each other for it. Otherwise, they'll have to leave. The head of UN AIDS is a foreign national. About 3 years ago when this report was published, he came to see me in the office and we chatted and I said, sir, now time for you to leave. Oh, no, I love India so much, etc. India is my home, India is my blood, India is my heart, India is my soul. He said, cut out that BS. Why do you want to stay in India? And then he said, honestly, he said, sir, if I go back to my own country, I'll be polishing my shoes and taking a bus to work. Here I have 3 drivers, 4 cooks, 5 maids, 6 gardeners and 7 homes. May I please stay in India? He said, no, you take the next flight back because we don't need you guys anymore. That is India. One digression on food. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember. We're going to conclude very quickly and then you can ask your questions to Mr. Sikri. If you remember that in 65 we fought a war with Pakistan, the rains failed in 65, the rains failed in 66. We made the largest imports of wheat in the history of mankind. 9 and 11 million tons, mainly from the United States. 9 and 11 million tons. It was called the PL-480 program under which India got this food. Indira Gandhi used to call Lyndon Johnson. Just give me a couple of minutes before you chat with yourselves. After that you can chat. Indira Gandhi used to call the American President Lyndon Johnson, say, please send us a shipment. We were living from what we said, ship to mouth. Aapko ek cheez aur batata hu. At that point, we were not allowed to have more than 25 people at a wedding for dinner. But we are Indians, so we'd let 25 in from this store, feed them and say, go out this way, we'd bring another 25. We could not serve sweets. We could not make barfi. We went through a very difficult time. My father would not let us eat cereals on Monday evenings because Shastriji, the Prime Minister of India, had said, give up one meal. I did not eat for about a year. We had no dinner on Mondays because we were, not that we couldn't afford it, we were just saving cereal. And today, when Indira Gandhi said to one of her aides, P.N. Haksar, India must never beg for food again, our scientists, our engineers, our farmers rose to the challenge. 2015, a country that begged for 11 million tons of grains became the world's second largest exporter of food grains. Millions of Africans, Asians, Europeans, they come to our hospitals. I took the Prime Minister of Lesotho to Medanta Medicity in Gurgaon. He rubbed his eyes and he says, Ambassador, this New York or London or Paris? I said, no sir, this is a tiny suburb of Delhi called Gurgaon. So, but this hospital, I said, did you bring it in last night? I said, no sir, it has grown from the ground over here. He was rubbing his eyes in disbelief. And when he saw the bill, of course we didn't let him pay, the government paid. He said, can I see it? He looked at it. He says, my gosh, this is what they would charge me for a single consultation in the United States. That is the strength of our country, our ability to service. So the main challenge in the coming years will be employment. We are going to have a lot of pressure. All you guys who are graduating, I hope we don't face an employment winter. We'll work through this. In the early 90s, 70s, 80s, Indians desperate to go abroad by any means. Now, one of the proudest moments of my life, standing behind Ratan Tata when he signed the deal for Jaguar Land Rover. Dr. Kang owns the Jaguar. It's made in India. He loves buying Indian cars. And I told him as much. I was standing behind Mr. Tata. I'm 6 feet 2 inches at that moment. I was 6 feet 8 inches. When he signed the thing and said, all right, Brits, you don't know how to run a car industry, I will run it. And it's making profits now. That is India for you. Open your eyes to see these Indian mega trends. How are we doing it? Self-reliance, self-denial. Anybody here, please be honest. Do you think your parents have made a sacrifice in sending you to college and university? How many of you think so? Look at the number of hands going up. All of us believe they have made a sacrifice in sending you to university. We have the ability to do that. We have the ability to let the winds of all cultures blow through our homes. To be Indian, as a young Indian, what should I do? Have faith and confidence in yourself. Don't allow these private media channels to affect you. Watch only Doordarshan. To be born Indian is a lottery of birth. May I win that lottery every and each time. और अगर डरना है ना तो डर से डर. Be afraid only of fear. There's nothing else. India at 68 in puberty, national hormones are going wild like the Sensex. People are wondering if consumerism is a good thing, etc. Then we vote for this great change in leadership. We are changing, churning, chafing. बेटा वो है भारत भाग्य विधाता in our national anthem और हम उसके सिपाही हैं. I conclude with a true story, the last 2 or 3 slides. This kid at the height of the Kargil war, I'd gone somewhere, and he comes up to me and he says, can I register the army? 19-year-old Bihari boy. I looked at him. He was on crutches. Both his legs were cut off. He had lost them in a train accident. I smiled gently and I said, Beta, aap fauj mein kaise jaoge? How will you join the army? He humbled me with his comment. Sir, I have come to fight, not to run. That is it was a quiet, dignified comment. We are the brave men and women who work while others sleep, who fight while others run. You now build India's pillars deep and lift them to the sun. That's what India expects from all its children. Thank you, and you can all now wake up, all those who were fasting. I conclude with 2 little things. You know, I'm getting old. And there are certain changes that take place in one's body. That's happening to me. Sooner rather than later, I will meet the person who created me. And if you ask me, what do you want? I shall ask for three things. Let me be born in India again. Let me become an ambassador again. And let me come to an AIMA function in Ludhiana. If any of you visit Kargil, go to a hill called Apati. There's a small memorial there with my name. It says Deepak Vohra, Ambassador, 1951, year of my birth, dash eternity. And below that is my epitaph. Scattered in the dust, silent I remain. When India's bugle calls, I will rise again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, children. I've enjoyed interacting with you. This is how we see our world shaping up. We are now unstoppable. It's a juggernaut that cannot be stopped. Forget what the media says. Forget these scams. All this is part of the process of going up. 3 चीजें मुझे दे दीजिएगा. 10 सेकंड हर रात अपनी जिंदगी के मुझे दे दीजिएगा. Do a personal audit every night before you go to sleep. Have I done something today that has made the world, my country, my community, my family a better place or a more bitter place? First, do it yourself. A personal audit. I do it every night. It helps. Second, you're going in a car, you're here, you're eating a gum, you're doing whatever, you throw a piece of paper out of the car. Nobody's watching. No, you are watching. If you have done it, you know that. I may not know. You have done it. And third, spread a little bit of sunshine wherever you go. When you interact with people, bring happiness. Let them feel that you care, that they're on. Do these 3 things and you'll find that you are much, much better human beings. Thank you very much. We have 3 minutes? 2 minutes? 1 minute? All right.
Pick 2 badges right now, okay? One is of another country and one is of India. So the gentleman, he asks him, sir, you're wearing 2 badges over here. So the ambassador replies to him, this one represents the country that I'm currently, I'm aware of that, sir. This one is the country that I'm currently advising. This is Guinea-Bissau. And the second one is my blood, and that flag was of India. That is the reply that we give. Thank you so much, sir.
In case I get hurt on the roadside and they're wondering what blood to use, then they should know the blood has 3 colors, saffron, white and green.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for invoking pride in a country called India, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you also for informing us about the level of change that has come in our world this year, in these times. Truly, someone has said that the amount of change that has been witnessed on this planet in the last 100 years has surpassed the change that has come into this world in the last 2000 years. And that particular change that has been brought in the last century has been completely overshadowed by the amount of change that we have witnessed as a world, as a nation, in the last 10 years. The pace of change goes on increasing. Long term is no longer long term. We do not know, as we said in the last session also, we do not know where we would be in the next 20 years. We have to start thinking on maybe a shorter term perspective, maybe what we are going to do tomorrow rather than what we will be doing 10 years from now or maybe 5 years from now. Thank you, sir. Amazing listening to you. We now proceed for questions from our panelists, and our first question comes from Neha. Neha, you may please go ahead.
Oh, take a chini mala nahi chalega. Go ahead. Use this one.
A very good afternoon, sir. Hi, Neha.
Yes,
I'm from JJ90. My question is for you. What it is that has made civil services everlasting #1 career option for India's best grades?
Yeah. Thank you. The question is, why does the civil service still remain an excellent career option? Is that the question? I'll answer this by saying that every career, every industry, every sector of society that you work for, it offers you opportunities to contribute. But when a country is growing and developing and has emerged from a colonial experience, the civil service offers the best opportunity to implement your own vision, your own desires, and to shape the destiny of communities. And I have found it very rewarding to be a member of the Foreign Service. IAS fellows are all useless. Foreign Service is much.
Truly said, sir. Civil services still remains the most preferred profession for today, and a career choice as well. Our next question comes from Gurpreet. Please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm from Ludhiana.
Yeah.
My question is that you molded yourself from a successful anchor to the ambassador of India. So, how your experience in media helped further in your career?
That's a very good question. How did my experience with the media help in furthering my career? Well, you've already heard that when I fell down while going for my interview, that was one. Second, my career in the media was very helpful when I first met the woman I married. I went up to her and I said, nice knowing you, I guess you know who I am. And with total sincerity, she looked at me blankly. She says, I don't know who you are. I said, yes, in that case, will you marry me, please? So that was my media experience. It has helped me communicate better. It has helped me interact with people. I speak 12 languages fluently. In none of them can I express the warm feelings that I have for Dr. and Mrs. Khan and for the Punjab College of Technical Education and all the other institutions here. It has helped me in communication. It has helped me to overcome barriers. And certainly it has helped in that in India, whenever I've been posted here, you ring up someone, please don't ship it. It's not being recorded, is it? Good. So whenever we go, we're using Chatham House rules, no recordings. Whenever I need an interview with someone, if I say ambassador, my secretary says ambassador Deepak Vohra. Then ambassador, बहुत सारे होते हैं. दूरदर्शन वाला, अरे देखिए. So that helps a lot in getting my meeting, not for personal benefit, but for the institutions that I know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, it helps. I think being in media does help. Our next question is from Gitanjali.
Good afternoon, sir. I am from PCT College.
Okay.
And my question is, if Donald Trump wins the US election, how would it impact the world, especially India?
Well, Trump मारेगा सबके ऊपर आज. You know, he is an extremely controversial candidate. Let me answer your question by saying that I have spoken to many. There was an email I got yesterday of some my former teachers saying, what does India think about it? I responded that our hearts are with Donald Trump. Our minds might be thinking of Hillary Clinton. You can give it whatever interpretation you want. The impact it will have first, assuming that he does not moderate his views. Because it's one thing to be screaming at the establishment from outside, and it's another to be part of the establishment. I've had it in my own career. When I was Deputy Secretary Administration, I sent a file to Director of Finance in External Affairs saying, please sanction this money because it is fantastic for this purpose and it's going to help 1, 2, 3, 4. You won't believe it. It never came back. 6 months later, I became Director of Finance. The file came to me, I responded. Brilliant idea, but it won't work for these reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we look at it from a different perspective. I think that if he does become president, first, of course, you have to understand that US influence is declining tremendously around the world. Of course, it will remain the bastion of innovation, ideas, self-realization. Military power, nobody is going to challenge it for many, many years. But political influence is declining, and it will probably continue. That is the impact I see. America will become more insular, more closed. Because as a military also, the feeling we see is that they are exhausted. And the signs of that are Syria and Iran. 30 years ago, they would have gone into Syria as they did with Gaddafi and Yemen and many of the countries in Latin America, and booted out Bashar al-Assad. Not today. 30 years ago, they would have turned around and given a couple of hard slaps to Iran. Not today. They are exhausted. The military people will tell you you can't go on forever maintaining your army in high alert. They are tired. They are exhausted. So let's see what Trump does. I have a suspicion that he will win. The Americans are also tired of the establishment. More people, in the last 20 years, more people in America, even rich people, have moved south than have moved north in terms of wealth. And he speaks the language of those who have moved south. Thank you. Interesting that you you watch what's happening in America.
If I may add,
Narendra Modi ke theek hai ki theek nahi hai?
if I may add, ladies and gentlemen, that the largest air force in the world belongs to the US, and the second largest force also belongs to the US. That is the US Navy. So militarily, American might would not go down as easily. But yes, I agree with you that the American patriotism is being invoked by maybe Donald Trump to some extent.
I think he's reaching out to those who feel deprived by the free market. Communism was the god that failed, the free market is the god that has also failed. Now we have to look for another god.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that Harpreet Khan will find one for us.
She may have contrarian views, I may say. Moving ahead, we have Vipul with us, who will ask. Yes, Vipul Singh.
My question to you is, India is trying, from last many years, India is trying to have a permanent seat in UN Security Council. But why this dream is still...
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. Why don't we get a permanent seat? Beta aisa hai. These 6 people sitting here are the people who decide the destiny of India. They were appointed because in 1945 they were the only 6 people available. Now Mr. Sikri says, I want to replace one of you. Do you think any one of them will move out?
No.
Because for the last 60 years, 70 years, they have been determining the destiny of the world. None of them is going to leave easily. We've tried every route. We went through the Security Council, we went through the General Assembly, we've talked. People have said India should be a member. Obama has said India should have its rightful place. Cameron keeps saying, David Blair said that, Putin says it, Holland says it. But when push comes to shove, nobody works. My personal assessment, not shared by my government, is that the United Nations has itself lived its life, and the new organization that replaces it will probably have a much better representation. In Africa, the president of South Sudan asked me, he says, Ambassador, do you know what the UN stands for? I said, of course, sir, it stands for United Nations. He said, no, it stands for unnecessary.
Would you subscribe to the thought that the influence of UN is waning?
Oh, completely. Completely. Many years ago, one of India's then foreign defense minister, what was this guy who was the defense minister in '62 during the China War, Krishna Menon, when he argued in the UN, he's at that time with the Soviet Union and the United States, he said, when the Soviet Union and the United States agree, the UN is pointless. And when the United States and the Soviet Union do not agree, the UN is useless. So that was the assessment at that time. And that's the assessment we still. It's completely useless.
Thank you, sir. Moving ahead, we have a question.
If I ever said this openly to the UN, they would never give me a visa for the United States. But yes, it has not at all lived up to its promise. In the conflicts we have seen, the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, many of us said we had to invent another superpower. Otherwise, these fellows will be uncontrollable. American triumphalism. One of these guys, my professor Francis Fukuyama, wrote a book, The End of History. History is finished. Now the Americans will rule forever. Command dekho, triumphalism. The way they dealt with the successor states of the former Soviet Union, the way they were humiliated. And what we are now going to see happen is a reassertion of what they perceive to be their rightful praise by Mother Russia, by China, by India, by a number of countries. So that is going to be a challenge for the United Nations. More wars have been fought. More wars have been fought. in the 25 years since the Soviet Union collapsed, 10 were fought since the UN was formed in 1991. So where is the peace dividend? One superpower disappeared, right? Shouldn't we have peace now? There's no more conflict. We don't fight. More wars have been fought in the last 25 years. One little example, I mentioned a while ago that my article in 2012 that expect more military interventions, more arms sales, which is the biggest industry. By the way, the number one traded item in the world today is weapons, arms. Number two is oil, and number three is narcotic drugs. Illegal, but it's number three. So weapons, oil, and narcotic drugs. These are the three that are traded. And one of the things I once asked President Jacob Zuma of South Africa, I said, sir, between the time that transition took place, Nelson Mandela, etc., to about 5 years ago, your country spent $15 billion on buying American aircraft, fighter planes. Who are you going to fight? He just smiled and he said, let's have dinner. And we ended the conversation like that.
That's it. We move ahead. The next question comes from Tableem.
Good afternoon, sir. I am from PCT, and my question for you is, from your experiences across the globe and the buzz about intolerant India, what would you like to say about the level of tolerance across the globe?
Yeah, that's a very good question. How do I compare the tolerance in India with the tolerance around the world? You are seeing the intolerance in Europe. The guys who used to give us lectures about human rights and tolerance, thank you very much. What's happened to all those refugees from Syria? Macedonia has erected a fence on, and one of them, what Mr. Trump says, send all the Muslims back, and the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is on record as saying Hungary will take any number of refugees as long as they are not Muslims. Where is the tolerance now when these guys are coming knocking on your door, when they are threatening your own living standard? Don't give us lectures. Refugees. None of you was born in 1971, the kids. We had 10 million Bangladeshis seeking refuge in India. And Mrs. Gandhi went around from country to country in Europe and the United States. Nixon was the president of the United States, saying, please help, our economy is in shock. We have barely recovered from the food crisis of 65, 66. We can't deal with 10 million. And the advice given, she's written about it, the advice given to her, tolerance, peace, patience, wait, accept them, humanitarian consideration. Now when I tell the American Western ambassadors, tolerance, patience, humanitarian consideration, hey, go away, ambassador, we don't want to talk to you. We give it to them straight. See, we're only quoting what you told us then. Yeah, but that was then, you see, that's fine. But the values are the same then and now, which they are not prepared to accept. So all those who talk about 5 chaps here or 20 chaps there and get beaten up or whatever, that has nothing to do about intolerance in India. India is, will always be a very, very tolerant nation. Ye tera hai, ye mera hai. This is the thought process of small minds. India has always said, sab kuch hum sab ka hai, vasudhaiva kutumbakam. The whole world is
Vasudhaiva kutumbakam. Thank you, sir. Moving ahead, we have a question from Mahmood. Please.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, all.
Mahmoud. Where are you from?
Syria.
Alhamdulillah, تتكلم العربية. أنا أدرس sorry, I was impressing you. أنا أدرس العربية في معهد بوجيبة في تونس. في تونس. Go ahead.
Shukran.
Wonderful to have a friend from Syria.
Shukran, sir. Thank you.
By the way, I was in your country not so long ago. I'd gone in a team and met with His Excellency the President. Go ahead.
Please do pass on sir's regards to him when you meet him next.
Well, I did directly. An amazing man. Go ahead.
I'm Mahmoud Baldani from BCT Group of Institute. Sir, about what is going on in the Middle East, I would like to ask you which policy is more successful? Russian intervention policy or is US stand justified?
You know, you've asked a very sensitive question. Should the Russians have intervened or not? That's what is being talked about. Some of us, let me tell you what has happened is, for those who have not been following, I follow it very carefully because I served in Sudan, I was right next door, I was in Tunisia, etc. It's very funny. Let's just take 3 countries, Syria, Turkey, and the Western nations. Let's treat them as one group, right? When I was posted there in Turkey, I used to tell them that, hey, these Kurdish fellows you are fighting, Peshmerga and all these other fellows, their army, they're brave guys. No, the Turks would tell me, absolutely useless fellows. The Western are useless. They're scarecrows, they don't know how to fight. Today's media says they are the best fighters in the world because they are fighting the IS. Now what is happening is, the Americans want to fight the IS using the Peshmerga. The Turks, who are friends of the Americans, want to fight Bashar using the IS. And the Turks themselves want to clobber the Peshmerga. So the Americans give arms to the Turks to fight Bashar, but they use it to fight the Peshmerga. And the Peshmerga, whatever arms they get, they use it to fight the IS. And whatever arms the IS gets, they use it to fight Syria. So basically everybody is fighting everybody else. Do you understand? It's like an old American woman wanted to know what cricket, the game of cricket is like. So she was very simple. You have two teams, 11 and 11. You understand? She said, of course, very simple. Right, man? And the idea is to win. Easy? Easy. So they have a toss. One team decides to bat, one team decides to. Easy, yes. Okay, now the team that is out goes in, but when the team that is in goes out, then what happens is that those who are out have to come in, and when those who are in have to go out. But when you are out, you are not really out because you come in, and when you are in, you are not really in because you have to go out. So thank you very much. I understood everything. Right? When you are out, you go into the pavilion. But when you are in, you don't go out unless you are called out to bat. Now figure that out and you know how easy cricket is. The Russians have intervened. I think Mother Russia is flexing her muscles and is showing the world that the unipolar world, the one pole, the determination of the world's future by the West is no longer. So I would say that it has stabilized the situation a great deal, and it's certainly been, from an outside perspective, it has certainly been working. Now I also believe, I don't know whether you agree with what your government is doing, but I personally believe he is the best thing that could happen. The President of Ghana, the President. That's a personal opinion. I don't know if my own government shares it. I liked him, I shook hands, we had a long conversation. He's a medical doctor, right? Yeah. We chatted for a while. I must say I was very impressed with his realism and his ability to understand what.
Thank you, sir. Shukran jazeelan.
Afwan, Habibi.
Shukran, sir.
Shukran jazeelan. Thank you very much.
Further ahead, we have a
We were
question
speaking
from...
Chinese, huh?
No, Arabic, shwaya.
Shwaya? Okay, he's also shwaya. Shwaya means I'm hungry. Anyway, go ahead.
Shwaya means little bit. Moving ahead, we have a question from Deepak Vohra.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Zimbabwe, sir.
Zimbabwe.
Yes. And good afternoon to you. I'm from PCT. And my question to you is, given its weak political and economical institutions, how can Guinea-Bissau play an effective role as a counter-terrorism partner in West Africa?
Yeah. You know, it's a very intelligent question. Asking about this tiny country called Guinea-Bissau. My population inside the country is about 2 million. I have 3 million living outside. I consist of 90 small islands. I'm the drug trafficking capital of the world. Sometimes we sit in the mainland, we watch these aircraft coming from Bolivia, from Peru, from this other place, Colombia, where drugs are manufactured, they are brought in, the planes are blown up because each aircraft has a unique transponder identification number. Then they are brought by boat to the mainland, from the mainland they are sent out on regular flights to Europe, because the demand far exceeds the supply at this time. And of course, in some states in the US have legalized it. Guinea-Bissau cannot play an effective role at the moment in counterterrorism in West Africa. We are changing prime ministers at the rate of one every week. I'm special advisor to the prime minister. Sometimes I call him, Mr. Prime Minister. He said, oh, I was sacked 3 weeks ago. All right, so who's the new guy? This fellow. But don't call him yet because he's in the process of being sacked. So thank you very much. There's very little that can be done. We are one of the countries that can be manipulated very easily. I don't see us heading into any kind of stable regional rule in the years to come. I don't see that. I'm sorry. Your country on the other hand, by the way, whatever the world thinks of the old chap, I like him a lot. I met him in Addis, I met him in India. He's quite a guy, he's very sharp. I quite enjoyed talking. You must be what, 105 now, not quite. 91 or 92?
92, sir.
92. Quite an amazing fellow. We used to worship him when he, got your country its liberation and independence. Robert Mugabe was a big name. Later he lost some of his luster, but I still think he is very competent, very charming.
Thank you so much, sir. We move on to the final question from the panelists on the stage, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience, and then we wrap up. We've just got.
Is the last speaker here already?
Okay, he's there. Fine.
Where is he? Oh, he doesn't want to sit here?
Might be overawed by your presence.
No, he's not.
Okay.
He's a journalist, I'm a civil servant, so
okay.
We're the best of friends. At the worst of times.
You leave no scope for moderation, I would say. Finally, we have a question coming from Maria. Please, go ahead with it.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Maria, I'm from Uganda. Okay, so sir, you're very well traveled. You've been to very many countries in different continents. Has there been any one situation in which you had to clear up assumptions about a specific country to people?
In which I had to? I'm sorry.
In which you had to clear your assumptions or belief system to the people there. Can you ask the question once again?
Has there been a specific situation in which you had to clear up assumptions?
Oh, in which when I interacted with the people, I felt that that I had the wrong assumptions about them?
No, that they had the wrong assumptions about a specific country.
They had the wrong assumptions about me, or I had the wrong assumptions about them?
They had the wrong assumptions about...
about India, for example. I mean,
yeah.
I will answer you with respect to India. Yes, certainly in many of the countries in Africa that I've been privileged to serve, they all know Gandhi, they all know Nehru, they all know Indira Gandhi, but beyond that, there's very little that they know, except that in some animal called information technology, India is doing very well. Medical is one thing when your people come to India for medical treatment. That's because the media, the Western media, will never give you a positive image of the development. Whether you like it or not. They all talk of freedom of the press, they all talk of this, that and the other. These days on BBC I'm watching that, no, on CNN, Quest Means Business, I'm watching that, all about incredible India. The first thing they show us is a push cart or somebody sitting on the street or a cow. That is the image that they are unable to overcome because it makes them comfortable. Okay. You know, it's an image when the Germans have a word for it, it's Heidenfreude. You feel good because the other guy is worse off than you.
Yes.
That's what they like.
Thank you.
They are the only people who talk of the decline of China, etc. What is happening in China is a decline. But the Western media is making out to be in 5 years China will be erased from the face of the earth. That's not what.
Thank you. Let's sum up. Okay.
Finished? You have a question, Mrs. Khan? Her question is, would I be able to come back again in about 15 years? Yes, ma'am, I will come back in 15 years.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Ambassador Deepak Vohra.